Most men think women want attention, more texts, more compliments, more effort. But if that were true, why does the man who acts unbothered stay on her mind the longest? Why is it always the calm guy, the one who doesn't react, the one who never looks desperate? Why does he become the one she can't forget? In this video, we're breaking down the psychology behind why women are drawn to emotionally calm men, and why trying too hard destroys attraction without most men realizing it. Because the truth is, the less a man needs validation, the more powerful he becomes. Before we start, comment, "I am the prize." Number 1. Stop chasing. Most men lose attraction before it even starts. The moment she gives them attention, they begin handing over their power without even noticing it. They text too fast, reply too emotionally, rearrange their schedules, over-explain themselves, try to sound impressive, try to sound different, try to sound safe, and the entire interaction becomes centered around one silent fear, the fear of losing her interest. And she notices it immediately because women are extremely sensitive to emotional weakness, no matter how sweet they pretend to be about it. She watches how quickly you abandon your standards just to keep her entertained. She watches how fast your calm disappears the second she becomes distant, and once she sees that your emotional state depends on her reactions, the attraction quietly starts collapsing because she no longer sees a grounded man with direction. She sees someone waiting for her approval to feel valuable, and the painful part is most men never realize this is exactly why they keep getting ignored, replaced, ghosted, or emotionally drained, while another man who barely speaks somehow keeps her attention effortlessly, and that reality frustrates men deeply because they were raised to believe effort alone creates attraction. They were taught that being available, caring deeply, and constantly reassuring her would make her appreciate them, but in reality, she often punishes emotional overinvestment by losing interest the second she senses she fully controls the interaction. Because when a woman knows she has complete emotional power over a man, the tension disappears, and once tension disappears, excitement disappears with it. This is why the man who acts unbothered immediately stands out, because he is not emotionally collapsing over every small shift in her behavior. He is not monitoring her replies like his happiness depends on them. He is not checking his phone every 5 minutes, hoping she validates his existence. He has a life outside of women. He has structure, discipline, purpose, and inner control. And because of that, he naturally becomes harder to manipulate emotionally, which instantly makes her more curious. Because women are used to men becoming predictable the moment attraction starts. They are used to men over-pursuing, over-sharing, over-committing emotionally, before she has even earned access to their deeper attention. So when she encounters a man who stays calm, measured, and emotionally disciplined, she starts leaning in because now she cannot fully read him, and uncertainty pulls her in stronger than instant reassurance ever will. This is the part most men struggle to accept, because deep down they want to believe women reward honesty, consistency, and emotional openness immediately. But what actually creates attraction is emotional self-control. She wants to know that your entire identity does not collapse based on whether she responds warmly or coldly on a random Tuesday afternoon. She wants to see if your frame stays intact when she becomes distant. Because women constantly test emotional stability even when they pretend they are not doing it. She might disappear for hours, respond dryly, cancel plans last minute, mention another man casually, or suddenly act colder after showing strong interest, and most men instantly panic and start chasing harder. They double text, seek reassurance, become emotional, overthink every interaction, and destroy their own position by reacting impulsively instead of remaining grounded. But the unbothered man does the opposite. He slows down internally. He keeps his routine, keeps his composure, keeps his emotional discipline. He understands that a woman's temporary behavior should never dictate his inner state, because once a man becomes emotionally dependent on a woman's attention, he becomes easy to control, and women rarely respect what they can completely control emotionally. This is why Stoic discipline changes everything in a man's life, because it teaches him to separate his emotions from his actions. It teaches him that emotional impulses should not control his behavior. It teaches him to observe situations before reacting emotionally, and this alone makes a man instantly more attractive, because emotional restraint creates strength, and strength creates presence, and presence changes the entire way women respond to you, because now she notices something rare, a man who does not desperately need something from her, and that is exactly why she starts chasing his attention instead. Because people naturally value what does not desperately seek validation, and this truth applies far beyond dating, because most men are living emotionally reactive lives in every area, constantly seeking approval from women, friends, co-workers, social media, strangers, and even family members, constantly shaping themselves around external validation instead of building internal certainty, and this destroys masculine presence. Because a man who constantly needs approval eventually loses himself completely. He starts speaking carefully to avoid upsetting people, starts changing opinions to keep attention, starts tolerating disrespect because he fears being alone, and over time he slowly becomes emotionally weak without realizing it. But the moment a man stops chasing validation, everything changes. His energy changes, his posture changes, his communication changes, even his silence becomes stronger because he is no longer operating from emotional desperation, and women instantly notice that shift because calm masculine energy is extremely rare now, especially in a world where most men are emotionally impulsive and constantly available. The man who can stay composed while everyone else reacts emotionally becomes unforgettable because he creates emotional contrast, and emotional contrast creates attraction. This is why you must stop trying to convince women to choose you and instead start building a life so internally solid that her attention becomes a bonus instead of a necessity. Because once you stop chasing women emotionally, women start chasing your attention psychologically, and that is when your entire life starts changing. And that is exactly why calm men often dominate rooms without speaking much, because presence is not created through volume, it is created through internal certainty. And internal certainty comes from discipline, purpose, emotional restraint, and self-respect. And if you truly want to build that kind of unshakable mindset in your own life, the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men is linked in the comments, filled with timeless Stoic principles that teach you how to stop chasing validation, control your emotions, protect your peace, and become the kind of man women naturally respect without forcing anything. It's now available in the audiobook version too. So while you're taking a walk, driving, training, or jogging alone with your thoughts, you can absorb life-changing wisdom that starts rebuilding your confidence, discipline, and emotional strength day by day. And the best part is this knowledge becomes yours forever, something you can always return to whenever life, relationships, or your own mind tries pulling you away from the man you are becoming. Number 2. Stay calm. A calm man is dangerous, not because he is aggressive, loud, or emotionally cold, but because he cannot be emotionally controlled easily. And this is exactly what unsettles women the most, because she is used to seeing men lose themselves emotionally. The second attraction enters the picture. She is used to seeing men become reactive, insecure, needy, jealous, impatient, and emotionally unstable whenever she changes her tone or attention. But when she encounters a man who stays calm regardless of her behavior, she immediately notices something different, because emotional discipline is one of the rarest traits a man can possess, especially today, when most men are emotionally exposed every second of the day, reacting impulsively online, seeking validation constantly, oversharing feelings publicly, and allowing their emotional state to be controlled by attention from women, and women observe all of this more carefully than men realize. She notices who becomes emotionally shaken easily. She notices who becomes desperate for attention. She notices who loses composure when ignored. And once she sees emotional instability, her respect quietly starts fading, because women crave emotional strength far more than emotional performance. She does not want a man whose entire mood changes because she delayed a reply. She does not trust a man who becomes emotionally reactive under pressure, because if small emotional situations already destabilize him, how can she ever see him as someone solid enough to rely on mentally, emotionally, or spiritually? And this is where calmness becomes magnetic, because calmness signals control, discipline, patience, and internal strength without needing to announce it verbally. And men deeply underestimate how attractive this actually is, because most men still believe attraction is built mainly through appearance, money, status, or endless communication. But what truly separates unforgettable men from forgettable ones is emotional control, the ability to remain centered regardless of external situations. And this changes every interaction with women, because now she cannot manipulate your emotional state so easily. She cannot provoke emotional outbursts from you whenever she acts distant. She cannot pull you into emotional chaos just because she becomes inconsistent. And ironically, this is exactly why she starts respecting you more, because women constantly push emotional boundaries subconsciously to see how grounded a man truly is. She may become colder randomly, cancel plans suddenly, act distant after showing strong interest, disappear temporarily, flirt indirectly for attention, or create emotional uncertainty simply to observe your reaction, and most men immediately fail these moments because they react impulsively instead of responding with control. They become emotional detectives trying to decode every message, every delay, every tone shift, and their peace disappears completely because they handed emotional authority over to a woman they barely even know deeply yet. And this destroys their confidence slowly, because emotional dependence creates anxiety, overthinking, and emotional exhaustion. But the calm man operates differently. He understands that his peace cannot depend on another person's temporary emotions. He understands that emotional stability must come from within, not from constant reassurance externally, and because of this, he moves differently in every interaction. He speaks slower, listens more carefully, reacts less emotionally, and stays composed under pressure. And women instantly notice this, because calmness creates emotional safety, while emotional impulsiveness creates instability. And despite what many women say publicly, they are naturally drawn toward men who remain emotionally grounded under pressure, because deep down she wants to know that your emotions are not fragile. She wants to know that her temporary moods cannot completely destabilize your inner world. And this is why Stoic discipline transforms a man's entire presence, because it trains him to pause before reacting emotionally. It trains him to detach his decisions from temporary emotions, and it teaches him that self-control creates freedom, because once a man controls his emotions instead of being controlled by them, his entire life changes. He stops chasing emotionally unavailable women, stops begging for attention, stops tolerating disrespect, stops seeking validation obsessively, and starts operating from clarity instead of emotional desperation. And this is where true masculine presence begins, because now your energy becomes steady instead of chaotic, and people naturally trust steady energy more than unstable emotional intensity, especially women, because she already experiences enough emotional instability internally throughout life. She does not secretly crave another emotionally reactive man, adding even more instability into her world. She craves emotional certainty from a man who remains grounded while everything around him changes. And this is exactly why calm men often dominate rooms without speaking much, because presence is not created through volume. It is created through internal certainty, and internal certainty comes from discipline, purpose, emotional restraint, and self-respect. And when a man finally develops these qualities genuinely, his entire reality changes because he no longer fears losing women. And ironically, that is exactly when women start fearing losing him. Number 3. Keep mystery. Women lose interest when everything is predictable. The second she fully understands you too early, the emotional tension starts disappearing because there is nothing left for her mind to chase. And this is exactly where so many men destroy attraction without realizing it. Because the moment they become emotionally attached, they start revealing everything immediately. They explain too much, text too much, confess too much, become too available, and remove all uncertainty from the interaction. And what they mistake for honesty often becomes emotional overexposure, because instead of allowing attraction to develop naturally over time, they rush to secure certainty from her as quickly as possible. And women rarely stay deeply attracted to men who become emotionally transparent too quickly, because mystery is one of the strongest emotional triggers in attraction. Uncertainty keeps the mind active. Uncertainty creates curiosity. Uncertainty makes her think about you after the interaction ends. But when you hand her every answer instantly, her imagination no longer needs to work. And once her imagination stops working, emotional excitement starts fading slowly. This is why the man who keeps some emotional distance naturally becomes more attractive, because he creates space for curiosity to grow. He does not reveal every thought immediately. He does not explain himself endlessly. He does not seek reassurance every time her energy changes slightly. And because of this, she starts trying to understand him deeper. She starts replaying conversations, analyzing his tone, wondering what he truly thinks about her, and that psychological investment becomes stronger than any amount of validation most men try desperately to give, because women often become emotionally attached not to certainty, but to emotional tension. And this truth frustrates many men, because they spent years believing attraction is built through constant reassurance and emotional availability, but reality often shows the opposite. She chases the man who seems emotionally grounded enough not to need constant connection from her, because deep down, women respect emotional self-control more than emotional exposure. And the painful truth many men must face is that women frequently say they want openness, vulnerability, and emotional transparency, but many lose attraction the moment a man becomes too emotionally available too early, because emotional mystery creates emotional weight, while emotional overexposure creates familiarity too fast, and familiarity without earned connection destroys anticipation. This is why so many men become trapped in painful cycles where they give everything emotionally only to watch her gradually become colder, slower, less invested, and eventually emotionally detached, while another man who gives far less attention somehow keeps her emotionally engaged effortlessly. And instead of accepting this reality, many men continue doubling down on overpursuit, overcommunication, and emotional chasing, hoping effort alone will restore attraction. But attraction cannot survive where emotional tension completely disappears, and this is why Stoic discipline becomes life-changing for men, because it teaches emotional restraint, patience, observation, and self-control. It teaches a man not to reveal everything immediately simply because emotions appear strongly in the moment, because emotions are temporary, but actions create consequences. And one of the strongest forms of masculine discipline is learning how to stay emotionally composed even when attraction pulls strongly inside you, because once a man learns to control emotional impulses instead of instantly expressing them, his entire presence changes. His words carry more weight, his attention becomes more valuable, and women start investing emotionally because they are no longer receiving unlimited emotional access instantly. And this creates a dynamic where she starts seeking your attention more instead of you constantly seeking hers, because people naturally value what is not fully accessible immediately, and this principle applies beyond women into every part of life, because the more available something becomes, the less psychologically valuable it often appears, and many men destroy their own value by making themselves emotionally available to everyone constantly, responding instantly, oversharing constantly, seeking approval constantly, and abandoning emotional discipline completely, and this slowly destroys their internal strength because they become emotionally dependent on external responses. But the mysterious man operates differently because his life does not revolve around emotional validation. He has goals, structure, discipline, routines, direction, and internal peace outside of women. And because of this, he naturally becomes harder to emotionally manipulate, and women notice this immediately because she is used to men becoming emotionally consumed by attraction quickly. So when she encounters a man who remains emotionally measured and internally grounded, curiosity intensifies because she cannot fully predict him, and unpredictability combined with calmness creates emotional depth. Not the toxic kind driven by games and manipulation, but the powerful kind driven by self-respect and emotional restraint, because true mystery is not pretending not to care. True mystery comes from genuinely having a life larger than chasing female validation, and this is where many men begin transforming their entire reality, because once they stop centering women emotionally in every interaction, they regain control over their minds, their focus, their discipline, and their purpose, and suddenly attraction starts happening naturally, because women notice men who are emotionally centered within themselves instead of emotionally dependent on female approval. And the deeper truth many men must accept is that women are often attracted to emotional challenge more than emotional comfort, because challenge creates emotional stimulation, while comfort without tension creates emotional boredom. And this is why the man who stays slightly emotionally out of reach often becomes unforgettable in her mind, because she continues trying to understand him long after the interaction ends, while the emotionally available man is fully understood within days and emotionally forgotten shortly after. And once a man truly understands this dynamic deeply, he stops exposing his emotions recklessly, stops trying to impress women constantly, stops seeking validation through attention, and starts moving through life with emotional control, patience, calmness, and quiet confidence. And that transformation alone changes how women respond to him permanently, because mystery is not created through manipulation. It is created through self-control, and self-control is one of the rarest forms of masculine strength left. Number 4. Value yourself. Here's the biggest reason women can't resist unbothered men. Those men no longer build their self-worth around female attention, and this completely changes the energy they bring into every interaction, because the average man walks into conversations already hoping to be accepted, already hoping to be chosen, already emotionally invested before she has even proven anything about her character, loyalty, discipline, or intentions. And women notice this immediately, because desperation always leaks through behavior. No matter how hard a man tries to hide it, it shows in his tone, his texting habits, his reactions, his impatience, his need for reassurance, and the more emotionally dependent a man becomes on female validation, the weaker his presence becomes, because his entire emotional state starts revolving around external approval instead of internal certainty. And this is exactly why so many men suffer silently in relationships and dating, because they secretly hand women complete emotional authority over their peace, confidence, and happiness. And once a woman realizes she completely controls a man emotionally, respect often begins fading slowly, because women are naturally drawn toward men who already stand firmly within themselves, men who have purpose beyond attention, men who do not collapse emotionally every time she becomes distant, inconsistent, emotional, or difficult. And this is where self-value becomes transformational, because a man who truly values himself stops accepting emotional crumbs, stops chasing unavailable women endlessly, stops begging for attention, stops tolerating disrespect disguised as mixed signals, and starts protecting his peace, his time, and his energy with discipline. And this changes everything, because women often test how much a man values himself by observing what behavior he tolerates emotionally. She watches whether he becomes desperate when ignored, whether he over-pursues after cold behavior, whether he abandons his standards simply to keep her around. And many men fail these silent tests repeatedly, because loneliness has weakened their standards so deeply that they would rather tolerate emotional inconsistency than risk being alone temporarily. And this creates painful cycles where they continue investing in women who barely reciprocate emotionally, while convincing themselves patience and effort will eventually change her behavior. But the uncomfortable truth is that women rarely respect men who consistently abandon self-respect just to maintain access to them emotionally, because every time a man tolerates disrespectful behavior out of fear of losing her, he silently communicates that he values her attention more than he values himself. And women instinctively lose attraction toward men who place themselves beneath them emotionally. This is why the unbothered man becomes so powerful, because his self-worth already exists before she enters the picture. He enjoys women without emotionally depending on them. He appreciates connection without losing himself inside it. And because of this, his energy remains steady, whether she stays or leaves, and women are deeply affected by this, because they are used to seeing men emotionally destabilized by female attention. So when she encounters a man whose confidence remains stable regardless of her reactions, curiosity and respect naturally grow stronger, because now she senses that his life has structure beyond chasing women constantly. And this is where Stoic discipline becomes life-changing, because it teaches men to separate their identity from external validation completely. It teaches emotional independence, patience, restraint, and inner control, and these qualities rebuild masculine strength from the inside out, because once a man stops measuring his worth through female attention, he begins focusing on purpose, discipline, health, finances, emotional mastery, and self-respect. And suddenly, his entire reality changes, because now he is no longer trying to convince women to choose him constantly. Now he becomes selective himself. Now he observes behavior carefully instead of blindly pursuing beauty. Now he understands that attraction without respect destroys peace eventually, and this level of awareness protects men from wasting years emotionally attached to women who only enjoy validation without genuine intention. Because many women enjoy attention from men they never truly plan to commit to. They enjoy emotional control. They enjoy being chased. They enjoy knowing a man is emotionally attached, while they remain uncertain and inconsistent themselves. And men must stop pretending this behavior does not exist, simply because society constantly pressures them to ignore uncomfortable truths about female nature, because pretending reality does not exist only keeps men trapped emotionally, while accepting reality allows men to navigate relationships wisely instead of emotionally, and wisdom changes everything. Because once a man truly values himself, he stops handing emotional access to women too quickly, stops sacrificing discipline for temporary attention, stops abandoning his standards out of loneliness, and starts building a life rooted in internal strength rather than emotional dependency. And ironically, this is exactly when women begin pursuing him more seriously, because confidence rooted in self-respect creates natural attraction effortlessly, not the fake confidence built on ego or performance, but the quiet confidence of a man who genuinely knows his value regardless of external validation. And this kind of man transforms his entire life, because he no longer fears losing women. He fears losing himself, and that shift changes everything forever. Most men spend their entire lives begging for validation from women, sacrificing their peace, self-respect, and purpose just to keep someone interested, while the truth that could completely transform them stays hidden because weak, emotionally dependent men are easier to control. And that is exactly why the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men matters so much right now, filled with timeless Stoic principles that rebuild your confidence, discipline, emotional control, and masculine presence from the inside out, now also available in the audiobook version so you can listen while walking alone, training, driving, or jogging, as this knowledge slowly reshapes the way you think, act, and live forever. And the course is also coming in just a few weeks for the men who are truly ready to go deeper. Comment: I choose discipline if you are ready to take back control of your life. Then like this video and subscribe, because every day another man loses years chasing women who never truly respect him, while another man quietly transforms himself and becomes impossible to ignore. The ebook is linked in the comments, and once you own it, this life-changing knowledge stays with you forever, long after the temporary attention, empty relationships, and emotional confusion disappear from your life completely.